The problem I consistently hear over and over again, you inherit forest land and you have no idea what to do with it. So inheriting forest land without understanding your responsibility, you're like, what needs to be done? How has it been managed? You may have no idea what's been done out there. How should it be managed? How it has been managed doesn't necessarily mean that's how it should be managed. And then how much will this cost? And then should we just sell it? That seems like it's always the easiest thing to do. Selling your land, that kind of goes contradictory to, creating a legacy. However, I never want to say selling your land is not the right option. My goal is just to provide you with all the resources and tools and opportunities and understanding. And so selling is not just everything's too much. And so we're just going to sell it to make this easier. Selling may be the decision you decide to do in the end, but I want to make sure, you kind of do it with a full understanding, not because you got some letter in the mail that said, hey, we'll pay you, cash money for your land. And because you're usually emotional and overwhelmed at the same time, a lot of times I've seen people will just kind of sign the dotted line and just sell their land and get the cash value for it. It's simply your why, your why factor. Now, this is different than your objectives. When I'm talking about objectives, it's when a forester or another natural resource professional says, hey, what is your objective? And you say, oh, I want to get income. I want to have wildlife habitat. I want to make sure I'm protecting the soil. We have erosion problems. And we want to do a lot of aesthetics out there. We want to have a homestead, so we want to make sure it's beautiful to us. So those are all objectives. Your why is one layer deeper, and it needs to be a really solid why. And so some examples of whys would be, I want to provide funding for retirement. We want to retire when we're 57, and we want to have this as a retirement income source. I want to be able to provide funding for my grandchildren's college. I want to be able to support them so they don't have to go to college with any debt. Questions that this kind of all relates to the why is, why did your family even get this land? To kind of just start with the very first step. Why did the family get the land? What was the purpose? What has it provided to this point? Why do you want to keep this land? And what future can this land provide to you? So a lot of these you might think are kind of the same thing. You're like, well, I want to keep this land because the reason why my family got this land. And that may be true, but sometimes it may be different. Your family maybe got the land because it was a good deal at the time and they had intended on moving out there. And then that never happened. You want to keep this land because your grandparents purchased it. So you have a little bit of that family heritage in there, and you want to kind of turn it around and make it an agritourism spot for your kids to kind of get a little bit more grounded. Or I use retirement and college funding examples a lot, and that's just simply because that's the most common whys that I do get. But I don't want you to decide that that's your reason why you're keeping this land if it's not real, if it's not authentic, because then it's not going to help you go through a lot of those challenging moments. Why back decisions? And so I had mentioned that your why is going to be kind of your magnetic north. It's going to be what you align everything that you do out there. Every decision that you make, you're going to say, is this helping me get to where I want to go? All right, maybe you want funding for retirement. We'll just use that again. And you're looking to retire in 10 years, not 30 years. You're definitely going to want that faster growth, and you'll probably want to invest in a little bit more genetics to get that higher volume, get that faster growth, versus if your why is that family retreat, away from the hustle and bustle and kind of, bring everybody together and remember, why you're a family, especially in today's society. Maybe you have adult kids and you're just trying to get that bonding back together. You don't necessarily need the fastest growing pine out there. You don't necessarily need the highest volume in investing in those higher genetics. Determine your intermediate income opportunities to pursue. So this one is super important to have a reason why you own your land. Raking pine straw or hunting leases. Raking pine straw is going to provide you that that income, that revenue stream, and hunting leases will do that too. However, do you want someone out there hunting on your property? Do you want clubs? Or are you using this as your own personal hunting, retreat with your family over Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays, on the weekends, during football season? If that's the case, then it doesn't matter what the hunting leases would be providing you income-wise. That's not the purpose you have for your property. The new carbon markets, opportunities. We're hearing a lot about that. I've had my own webinars about it. I've been on webinars about it. I think it's a great opportunity for landowners, but it's not for every landowner. You have longer term carbon markets that are like 125 years, and you have this new one that you only makes you delay harvest for a year. So which one better aligns with your reason? So without a solid why, you're probably going to be unsure if your goals are being met. You're going to be chasing rabbit opportunities, and I'll explain that a little bit more if you haven't heard me talk about rabbit opportunities a lot. You're going to be skeptical of any recommendations that are provided to you, and you could be swayed into potentially bad deals. And so some of these do kind of bounce off of each other. You're going to be unsure if your goals are being met, and you're going to be skeptical of recommendations provided to you, because you're not really sure if, it's doing what's best for the land, if it's doing what's best for you. You're just doing anything on the whim. You don't have that long-term vision of what you're trying to get out of your property. Someone just told you, you should harvest now. Prices are great. You're like, yeah, cool, I'll harvest. Now, and that leads to oftentimes rabbit opportunities. And so rabbit opportunities are when you kind of change your mind a lot. How can you start this legacy creation? Like once you establish your why and you get it pretty solid, and don't just be like, yeah, I want retirement funding. I want to help my grandkids. All of that, everyone says, kind of on a whim of a dime. It's kind of like the trendy thing, but I want to make sure that's true for you. And so if that is truly your reason why you have, your forest land and what you want it to do, that's 100%, 150% great. But don't just kind of throw it out there, but like, yeah, that's my why. And then next step to creating that legacy with your forest land is to talk to the next generation. Who's going to be inheriting it? Have you thought about that? If you have more than one kid, are they going to be splitting it up? Who's going to be taking it over? Who's going to be the lead? Or are they going to share it? Talking to them, though, will reduce the stress load of them inheriting the forest land. So if you inherited forest land, you might have, felt a lot of that overwhelming stress and not knowing what to do, like what we talked about on that first slide, the problems that come along with inheriting forest land. And you want to try to alleviate that stress as much as possible for them. And then this also increases the likelihood that your land is going to become an asset and not a liability. If you kind of think about like as stress gets more, the more of a liability it becomes, and the more likely that they're just going to sell it because it's easier, or get swayed into that bad deal, or make poor decisions for the forest land inherit it from. These are just some great questions just to start the conversation, because I've heard that a lot. Just not knowing how to even start the conversation. What do we talk about? So what does the land mean to you? What words come to mind? And so this is just kind of like that open icebreaker. Like, how do you envision the forest looking? Describe it. Use some words to describe what do you think about for what you want it to look like? And what would or did you want the land to do for you? So depending on which side of the coin you're on, of I'm about to inherit it, or you're talking to someone about to inherit, depends on how you would phrase this question. But what was, what did you want it to do for you? And that goes down to your why factor. Share your why. Why do you have this? What did you want it to do? Provide income, provide peace, provide hunting opportunities, provide just, family retreats and bonding through ATV riding, kayaking, fishing, whatever it is. And you don't have to talk about whether it's actually done that. It's just what purpose you want it to do for you. And if you're about to inherit it, listen with open ears of what your parents and grandparents wanted the land to do for them. And do you know, or what has this land done for us? So this is slightly different than the question before it, because maybe there was all these plans and dreams and vision for what the land would do, but life got in the way, as it often does. You grow a family, you get jobs, you move, and maybe it hasn't done that because it hasn't been able to been managed as well as it should have. And so what has it actually provided? And on the flip side, maybe it has been managed great and it has provided all these opportunities to go on beach vacations in Disney World, and then you want to share, what does this land mean to me? And so that's a very personal reason, like, all right, this is what it's done for us and for me. What has this land done for me? And this would be it's a slightly different one. What is challenging about our land to you? So you're not just talking necessarily facts. You could be just talking, again, a lot of this is emotional and qualitative information. So what is challenging? It could be access is challenging. Maybe you're landlocked, and so actually getting to your property is a problem. It could be managing it because of weather has been problematic. Maybe you live 6 to 8 hours away, and so trying to do a long distance management has been challenging. Whoever's fixing to inherit it, or if you're about to inherit it, you don't go in with a naive thought that this is going to be roses and easy peasy, easy money. Nothing about forest land and land management is necessarily easy. It's always rewarding, but it's not easy. And so if you can share some of those challenges, it'll probably better prepare whoever's fixing to take it to handle those challenges. Other legacy aspects. So your whys are all, you're probably like, okay, that's fine and dandy, Danielle, but that doesn't actually help us do anything. And I would slightly disagree with you, but I can understand your point. You're like, I wanted something to do next. Next would be, you want to make sure you have your estate planning in line. If something was to happen to you tomorrow, is your will figured out for who would be inheriting the property? Or is the state going to decide how it's divvied up depending on state laws to all of the heirs? So if you don't have a will, get a will. That's basically what that's saying. But, thinking through that estate planning, should it be set up as a family trust or an LLC? Should one sibling inherit it? Should be multiple siblings? And then along with that would be management plans. Do you have a management plan? Do you have a 10-year management plan? And this is incredibly helpful. Again, if something was to happen to you tomorrow, whoever picked up that management plan would know what you've already done and what your plans were for the future. And it just, again, makes everything so much easier until they can kind of get back on their feet, figure out how this whole land thing works. That management plan is going to be a great guide to help them move forward in whatever vision you had for your property.